But like, I just going back through the documentation. I don't want to go too far because Arthur's going to join, but we didn't really look at the current column thing, which seems like it might be interesting. And we didn't, there's a couple of gotchas, which are always nice to look at, right? And gotcha just being like, don't do that kind of, that's like a mistake they're going to call out for you, which is nice. And then other verbs are like pick, I guess, is the main one.
Yeah.
Now, so for some verbs like group by count, thing you don't need Python. So it's okay. Okay, I think I kind of get pick. That's going to be a cool one to look at. Have you used pick to like much?
No, I don't know what it's about. I think Arthur presented about pick during his row-wise presentation. Yes, yeah, I remember, but I forgot what is about.
Well, yeah. he kind of mentioned it, right?
Yeah.
And I think let's have a little look at the docs, because it's interesting. So I was just reading it, and it's saying like, so in mutate and stuff, you'd go over cross. You know what? I'm gonna try something. We're gonna get ChatGPT up. I'm just gonna start using this quite a bit to just automate my work. It's not gonna have pick, but if we put this whole thing in, here is dplyr 1.0 documentation. Oh no, here is the dplyr documentation on column-wise operations. Question: why use pick over cross? I'm just going to let that. It's too long. I thought the context length might now be like long enough.
Instead, you could pick only the pick code.
Yeah, well, I think I could also I could cut it in half. So you go like, okay, 4 gotchas. I'm going to tell it, I'm going to feed you 2 bits of documentation. New chat. Let's go this one. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 pieces of documentation. Memorize both. Do not reply until the second one memorize. So takes that. It's good. Like, even if you say do not reply, it's like, well, I'm just going to reply. I don't care what you say. But then if we were to pick this, I think this will okay, you can stop generating that now. So second documentation. Why use pick? See if it does this. I don't know that it will actually. Pick is recommended verbs like goodbye. Okay, yeah, well, we read that ourselves. But it's a good question answer. So while we wait for Arthur, are there any kind of questions you do want to ask? Let's see what it says. But why? So if you're, well, maybe it's best to have a look at this, right? So in mutate, all of names, right? So if can you do the same thing? At what point does it break if you just go pick? I guess maybe it's not going to like this stuff, right? So let's have a look. So you don't want a formula. Okay, so pick all of names. What does mops actually do? Let's wait. this gives you beta cross. So the names of model X, Y, Z. X times, okay, 1 times model current column. So here you've got 2 times. 2 times 10 times 2 is that was, I don't know. Maybe I should have actually read this code. The error message said, formula shorthand must be wrapped in where? So that's
You
like,
can
yeah.
ask Arthur, he is here.
You can also what, sorry?
I mean, Arthur is here, you can ask him.
Okay, Arthur says, so let's come out of this for a minute. I'll stop sharing my screen. Yeah, so let us know when you're here, Arthur, because we can kind of decide what we do.
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we were just chatting for just a couple of minutes, not really about anything. I fed the column-wise vignette into GPT-4 just to see if like asking it questions and stuff would be fruitful while we had time. And it probably would be. But maybe let's get to that at the end, because there's a couple of things we didn't really cover last week about column-wise, namely pick. That was column-wise. So it was mainly pick and filter, because for filter, it's not recommended to use across. I think it's still recommended to use the filter if and at and stuff. But it does have some, in this vignette, there are maybe some like expansions on that. But then the first thing, and I don't know, perhaps you can enlighten us a little bit here, is like when to use pick and when to use across. Do you have, because you touched on pick in the row-wise, I guess, section, right?
I have exactly the same question, Jack. I mean, it happened to come up in the row-wise presentation. I sort of had an intuitive sense of what I was doing, but that's I don't quite understand the distinction between the two. Yeah, that might be fruitful to kind of bear down on.
Yeah, because it's like
it seems, I mean, just reading the documentation, it seems like it's, I don't know, somewhere in between across and select.
Yeah, it's like it's a nice way of selecting some columns, right? I'm just gonna share my screen up again. We're gonna have a little look at pick in the documentation. The way to easily select a subset of columns from data using select. Okay, so it's actually using select. Oh, we'll select semantics. Okay, sorry, I should have kept reading. I thought as a full stop. But why inside a data masking function like mutate or summarize, pick returns a data frame containing the selected columns for the with pick, you typically apply a function to the full data frame, and whereas with across, you do it to each column. So it's like element-wise versus the whole thing. So let's get a couple of their examples just straight out of here. Okay, so cols equal pick x, y. So your x and y cols data range. So join right between x and y. Dense rank. That's another new function, isn't it? Dense rank. Like, I don't think we've touched on dense rank yet.
Is that a dplyr function?
Yeah, did it? I think it shipped.
Oh, it is, yeah.
It shipped with 1.1. let's just get paired documentation. Okay, so it's like row number dense rank, but what does it actually do? Because I can't actually remember this. Dense rank works like min rank, but doesn't need any gaps. Ah, yeah. Yeah. So like row number, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So if you've got, we'll take a quick look at 10. So you've got like this tibble, it's like 10, 10, 20. If you wanted to like, if you were using row number, so let's say we like arrange them in descending order. You've got 20, 10, 10. And then you do the old way, it's like rank equals row number. Well, now like you arbitrarily, not arbitrarily, it's because it's the row in front, but you got rank 1, 2, 3. And imagine these are people in a race that had like the exact same score. Well, they got the exact same score and you just like row 2, 1 with 10, and that's like maybe not really fair. So you would want something like rank equals dense rank on X. And then, is there an argument for like ID for the smallest values, we get the smallest ranks, use desk. Okay, so like what? Is it desk on the X? Yeah, so you do something like this, and then it would say, well, okay, like they got the same amount of points, so their rank really should be the same. So that's why you would do that. But now let's say we've got like another, or let's just copy this because start muddying the water too much. Like, why use pick for something is what I'm wondering. So say you've got like, I don't know, 5, 50, and 10, just so it's really obvious which one's going to like blow the other ones out the water. If you do something, you go like mutate rank equals dense, or is it pick then dense rank, or is it dense rank then pick? That was in the pick docs, wasn't it? So in here it was saying in these, does it run examples? Okay, dense rank pick. So we can we go XY? Like, oops, my code disappears. So rank 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it like sums up both. No, wait, that's not right. I need desk, don't I? Or if you're using, now you're getting into like, this is really, yeah, it doesn't make sense. So is it 2 desks like pick desk? Can you even desk here? Like, or do you need to desk here and then desk? Is the right brackets? X is not found. That's a funny one. So what is it trying to say? Okay, so yeah, those guys, they're data masking functions. Pick there, they have tidy select behavior. Okay, so it's like, well, I still don't see exactly yet why you would switch away from across. It's just if you want to use tidy select instead of saying where is numeric or something. Yeah, it does kind of make sense. Like, I'm not sure if actually pressed, I would be able to use it.
So I mean, it seems like you can, Jack, with so it accepts the ellipsis is like a tidy select. So you could do exactly what you said to where is numeric. You could still select columns in that fashion.
But with pick.
With pick. With both pick and across.
Yeah, but when
through tidy select.
Oh yeah. But you couldn't with across use contains and stuff. Or can you?
So contains would be with respect to the column name.
Yeah, like, you know, when you're using select, so like,
Yeah.
say you've got mount cars, you go for like,
I think you could, although that's probably an empirical question.
yeah, let's take a little look. So we've got something like, if we're using select, we can just do something like contains, I know, the letter A, and we just get these columns, right? But you couldn't, or could you? And I'd have to, like, I feel like this would just be unnatural syntax, but .cols equal, I don't think you can't contains here, can you? Because this is a function. Or, well, I guess where's also a function, but is it this right kind of function? Contains A, and then do something on it like .x equals .x plus 1. But
Yeah, I think that would be a sort of like their inner action. I mean, the across I think would probably become a separate step, right? It'd be a mutate.
yeah, so I just want to check, like, okay, because in mutate you would use across, not contains. In select you would use contains, not across. But I'm trying to figure out if, or at least in my head, whether, wait, I don't want this. I want .x. Oh no, that should make sense. Oh yeah, the mutate. Mutate .x equals like this one. Sorry, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Must only be used inside data masking, but yeah, so that's the error message we kind of wanted to see. Select is not a data masking verb, which is kind of what it was hinting at before. So yeah, it's a tidy select in its ellipsis. That will be it. So if you mutate, it's going to have data masking in its ellipsis. And then these other verbs, they don't have data masking in the ellipsis. They have, say, tidy select. So if you want to like recreate some of the behavior of tidy select, or do I mean the other way around? Like, it starts to make sense in my head. And then when I actually have to do something with it, I'm like, oh, no, this doesn't quite make sense. So count, okay. Count all. So counts one, I know quite well. So let's say as Tibble, if you wanted to like count, you're not going to go the across route, right? Because count doesn't have
Yeah, for at least in my mind, the way my mental model for across is sort of like per for columns in a certain sense, or like per within mutate, where you're just taking a function and applying it to multiple, like set independently to multiple columns. Pick seems to position itself, at least by my reading, to be something more, I guess it's something that selects and then allows you to perform operations on a data frame or a segment of the data frame. Whereas I guess across is not meant to be done in that fashion. I mean, it's meant to be for column-wise operations, and pick is, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I think it's maybe more data frame-wise operations, if that makes any sense. So, I mean, I guess for count, you're selecting some variables, some like you're selecting some variables in your data frame and then applying a function to them, and that function takes as arguments multiple columns, like count, for example.
Yeah.
So it seems like they play different complementary roles. It's at least my initial understanding, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it says in the docs as well. So I think you're right. I think it's trying to rearrange some mental models about how things works, and then you get the low level understanding as you use them more, right? But like in here, because this is data masking, I could use across. Like count would be quite happy with across, but it wouldn't be happy with contains A here. And then try to do count pick contains, okay, yeah, and then let's just say it's like true. So like, yeah, it's not going to like that. But I could probably do some function, right, with like count across and then string detect or something, the A, like no, I'm kind of improvising here, but if I were to like, no, it's not gonna like, because it's not gonna access the names right. So if you do like names mount cars, and then you string detect that an A. Oops, I haven't loaded. Oh, I'm not even gonna have a stringer, am I? Oh, cool. So you got those. There'll be just these columns that would have the A that we saw before. This isn't what you would want to do in an across, right? And then you just say like it doesn't make sense to me that you would use across here. So you go back and you've got, you say you just want all of the columns that contain an A. You pick contains the A. And then it counts them. Like, that makes sense. But you could do something like, because where it's like, where is new, or like across where dot X could you, this must be quite frustrating to watch. And so you're like across where string detect. No, I don't know. It doesn't. I'd have to use like the formula thing, right? String detect.
I think it wouldn't be valid in that context, simply because it's counts is not a, or actually is it? I was going to say is not a data masking function.
No, yes, count is.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that, but that's why I'm trying to make it use across, is because I'm like, well, it doesn't mind across. Or it's like it can deal with that. Do we have the Star Wars data frame? Because that's where they're not all numeric. So like count across where, this is like how I would use it, like is dot character or something. Provided my brackets are right. Yeah, you just got, oh wait. What's my function? Yeah, it doesn't make sense because you're just counting. That's essentially counting the number of, no, I can't because there are only 14 columns. Why does it give you 32?
And it is giving result in integers. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's counting them up. What's it counting? Like what has 32?
I think it must be, I don't know, wait.
Because we've got 14 columns. Right, because normally though, you'd have something, so you got your across, and you go where like its character. And then you got something like this, right? And you like do stuff to them. Or where's the actual always? Yeah, so you got something like this. Anyway, or we could just like, wouldn't make sense now to be like count. It's like, why would you want to do that? Okay, but it gives like I don't know. Like this should, okay, it just keeps
the error is actually due to count, not due to across.
yeah. So what would we actually be wanting to do here?
Across is doing its work, but if we can look at the documentation of count, what it is counting, that will be helpful, I guess.
Yeah. So X variables to group by is just like it's grouping by one. I don't know. Okay, the one thing that, okay, if we're on pick, this is cool. Like pick contains A. Like that's cool because for me, like you don't now have to write all of the one, and you wouldn't really do contains A, right? It would be if you had done a bunch of like things on a column and you've got like all the prefixes or whatnot, or you need to do stuff on a bunch of columns, or you can use this to use tidy select on a function that doesn't have tidy select in its ellipsis. Maybe it's a case of just leaving it there, because that seems to be the use case or the reason why you'd use it. But I suppose to get the full mental model, I'd want to figure out, well, count is data masking, which means I think that means that I can use across. Oh, but these calls are tidy select. Wait. Count. Just going to go down. What do we want to? Okay, no, so that does do it when you actually do the syntax right. So it is just a case of, like you said, when you want to do it over each column versus when you want to do it over all of the columns together. I suppose I'd have trouble initially just thinking, I guess that dense rank one made sense for pick.
Yeah, the blog article for this is kind of rather confusing, I think. I was just looking at that in parallel. I'll give you a link to the the pick portion of it.
But yeah, let's take it. Let's pick one thing that many people like to across.
I guess kind of the gist of it is that across, whereas it works, doesn't seem like it should in certain contexts, and so pick is meant to be a replacement that also does other stuff. Then there's a final line that really confuses me, because I see these two functions as playing different roles. It says we haven't deprecated across without applying the functions argument yet, but we plan to in the future, now that pick exists as a better alternative.
Yeah,
I actually, never mind. I think I do get that. I wasn't reading that important part without supplying the functions argument.
Yeah, because I was trying to find the reason where the place you couldn't use across that you could use pick, but it seems like this says you kind of can just use pick whenever you previously used across, and across will become potentially deprecated. But there was
I guess this is sort of like an example of what Hadley has talked about in the past of the off-label usage of functions. It kind of feels like this is maybe like an off-label usage of across, in the sense that even though I guess you're allowed not to provide the functions argument, somehow it still seems like by the design of the function, by its intent, you should be providing a function, because it's sort of like the logic is per, but for columns almost.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, I think I nearly understand. What I don't get is this bit that said, wait, is it because there's already a count's already doing the function, whereas mutate isn't?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, you're passing a data frame to pick, or like selected columns, or say pick is selecting columns and then passing it to count.
Yeah, which makes sense. That does make sense. That's why it felt weird trying to make the syntax with count with across, because it's like, well, what am I even going to put in here? Because count's already doing the thing that I want to do. Okay, nice. I think personally, I'm maybe starting to get it, maybe a little bit slowly, but.
Although I'm starting at the risk of confusing myself and maybe all of us as well, is what's the distinction between pick and select? I mean,
yeah,
in a certain sense, like select is, has a mechanism of selecting columns. So in a sense, you're basically selecting elements of a data frame and then passing that to a function to do something. I feel like there's a, if you had a Venn diagram, there'd be pretty large overlap between select and pick, even if pick does some distinct things that only pick does.
I think you're exactly right there. And I think, was it this bit where it says, so pick provides a way to easily select a subset of columns from your data using select semantics while inside a data masking function. But it's like, you couldn't do this, right? Let's say, you couldn't go mutate select, or like, so like, you couldn't, you just can't do that. They're not like, so I think select isn't a function that goes into anything else. But if you wanted to like recreate the thing, you would pick. Or can you not pick in a mutate? Data masking function. No, so yeah.
Yeah, so I think in your example, like pick actually works for what you've said, but select wouldn't.
Yeah, like like you can't do that. It's like you can't count inside here and stuff, like x equals count and stuff. Like that is even if you it says AM, like it's just going to raise an error, and it would here. If I did want to pick, I should do something, right? Like contains A, or I don't know, what did this even do? I don't feel like this would make sense.
So strangely, it returns a data frame.
Yeah, it was returning a really strange. I don't know what. It seems like it just broke everything. So this came back, not with the columns that we maybe wanted. So there is a data frame in here. So like, are these two data frames now? So if I save this, like, let's just save this as temp. What actually is this? Because you see it's got this like X object in here. Yeah, it makes sense that this maybe wouldn't work. But it's like, what's actually in temp? Let's get my environment pack. So temp has 32 observations of 12 variables. Well, names, no, class, length is 11. So yeah, it's just an extra column, and that column is itself a data frame. Because if you've got in here, you've got the names, and at the bottom you're going to have X, and that thing is a data frame. It's like you never want this to happen. Because I mean, it wasn't really a real use case for this. I was just trying to figure out what breaks or doesn't break it. But obviously, if you're going to have like, I guess because data frames are just lists, it's fine, but you just nest, right? If you're gonna nest a tibble in a column rather than have like the actual column itself is a data frame. What is it like? It now has loads of really weird encodings and stuff, which I don't want to say this makes sense, but it's like, okay, it's cool that it doesn't work because it didn't feel like it should work. Was there any more things? Yeah, that's cool. Count and pick. Distinct and pick. That's cool. Was there a mutate pick, or did you just use a cross? So I would put in their docs earlier like this. So could you use pick and mutate? See what it says. But it's not the most efficient way since the cross is specifically designed for such a zero leg, right? Double the values of pick times equals pick. Hey. I don't know if ChatGPT knows what's doing. Like, it's saying don't do this. And it makes sense, like, what on earth are you doing this for instead of just cross? But there's like the question. So say we somewhat get pick. It's probably the kind of thing just going to have to use it a few times and be aware that it might in the future completely replace across. But filter does not like across at all. And I looked at a couple of the issues or threads of issues. There were some things they were like, we don't see with filter why it why across is better than the stuff we already had. But let's say, because you've got,
I think this if any and if all, I think those are really, I think those are compelling to me. Because I mean, you can't use across, but somehow you have this if any where you're sort of in a sense like applying a function that will return like a Boolean value to each one of your selected columns, and then determining whether there's any, like any true in the case of if any.
yeah,
At least that's kind of my understanding of this. And then if all
Yep.
is kind of the case with like base all and base any.
Yeah, so if we're using mount cars, so filter stuff, filter with if or if any, we got something like mount cars, and we want to write about the difference. We've got like if or what's the syntax of and do you always use everything? We'll always use everything for now, just because it's going to be easier. And then we say like dot x greater than what's one that's going to get rid of a lot. We got dot x is everything in that is greater than 9. Which part of the syntax? Hey, why?
Because there's no 9-cylinder cars.
Yeah, but I want the columns where like I want MPG and stuff, no, where every value is above, like every single value in the column, or is it every single column, every single value?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what the everything is. So it's kind of like selecting everything in the data frame. If you want to select specific columns, you can do so with the tidy select.
So this one does work because I'm doing it over everything, and I'm saying if there's any value in it, but there's no value in sil, which is greater than, I know, but there are, okay, yeah, I got it. It gives me all the columns because there's, for any of these columns, like any of these big ones like HP and MPG, there's a value inside that column which is greater than 9. So therefore return everything here.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's interesting. So where would can you think of places you would use that? It's a row where the predicate is true, false, selecting.
Yeah, I think I could see myself using this for maybe kind of data inspection. Maybe I'm looking for observations. Like let's imagine I have cases and rows, columns, or maybe attributes, and say give me all cases where there's at least one attribute that's detected or something like that. That might be an interesting thing. Or maybe those rare cases where all of the measured attributes are present.
Yeah. Yeah. So is it always that it goes with everything? Or do you? It's just split. Apply functional functions across. Okay, this is kind of similar. So across if any, if all. I kind of get down to there's the cross. Where's the if any gone? These all of stuff, they're different tidy select stuff, right? Where's the examples of the if
There you go.
Okay, yeah. So if any ends with width. So this is saying, give me the rows, right? And I guess that makes sense why it's different for filter, is that filter's like fundamentally a row-based thing, whereas select is like column-based and stuff. So if any of the columns which ends with dot, so if everything that's just come here is greater than 4. So this is just, yeah, okay.
If any actually checks all the columns, and then it works like an OR command when we use in if else. So if any of the condition is good enough, it will give the result. But for if all, we have to be all the conditions in the bracket should be correct.
Yeah, you just need, in this case, we just need 1, and in the other, we need to have everything. So you look at it like this, and
I think it is not checking the 4 condition here.
I think, but so what it's saying in these columns, right, that end with width,
Yes.
which this one and this one, in any row that there is a value greater than 4, like leave everything in that row.
Yeah, a value in those selected columns. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can put if all here, what will be the result?
Right, so let's say if all ends with, I would get, let me just check what's in the actual iris data. So for the width, well, yeah, because this would definitely not return anything, right? Because width, they were all like below 0. So that's pretty cool. Let's copy that a sec and get the.
What in the select operations we studied any of and all of.
Yeah.
What is this then? If any and if all.
And all of is more like a tidy select thing, though, right? Like I was just rewriting a function today that sadly it's sat in like a repo that I can't really get up and look at. But there's a new error message. If any of your tests or any of your functions they're using something like all of when they should be like in filter at .vars or something, right? You could have like a bunch of column names. You got mount cars and you got MPG sil, and we'll just go through this. You could do something, I think. Let me just think about this before I do something stupid. You could mount cars, and then what you filter all of temp names. Wait, no, select. Say select. Temp names. And it will do that for you. But then there was a case.
Okay, so for if all we do it does not accept a vector as an input.
If all does not, it's like it has to be some kind of function, right? Or if all,
I think you could do, Shah, I think you could do it with like the C, but you'd have to have bare names, I think. So it's basically whatever you could do in tidy select. So that's what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember in the documentation they were saying in the all of and in any of the input was a vector. But
yeah, and a vector could be like a length 1 or documentation. Okay, all of this strict selection of arrows and the character that you're using there. So.
it's saying X, a vector of character names or numeric locations. So that's how it is different.
So I would create an error though if I put like after here. It would say, no, I can't give you that.
Because you are using all of. If you use any of it, it will not give an error.
So now, this one will like this. Sorry, often my way of trying to understand things, like trying to figure out when they break. And this is different to this.
It is accepting dot calls and as an input.
Yeah, and it takes like all of doesn't like accept function
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
afterwards. Okay, that's pretty cool. Like, so I had to switch the function, and what I should have used is this. I just rewrote this function today, and I should have used filter, or like if all or if any, or the thing I wanted to do instead of using filter underscore at, because I actually just did this. Like there was like this legacy function, and I could just do that, and then I could do the stuff I wanted to do. But judging from this, if we get back to dplyr colwise, if at all, filter and stuff, these functions are all going to be deprecated, right? Well, let's just check this filter at superseded. Yeah, okay. If all, okay, nice. So if you can hear my dog, like my mic's making a weird noise, my dog's just decided to stop snoring and has come to have some water. Okay, well, I think knowing that filter is best with this if all and if any now, and that filter underscore at and if are like superseded, we're basically at the bottom of colwise, right? There's probably a lot more. Starting to use pick for stuff is the kind of thing, like I'm sure we'll all generate little tricks and little things with it that like really help out as we go. But understanding that that's what you can do now, what you should do, is I think it's kind of like the whole point of this club, right? We get in touch with the documentation, we figure out either stuff we didn't already know or stuff that we did know that no longer applies. So I'd say for colwise, we're probably, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. For colwise, we're probably good. We could pick and reframe the other part of this. Reframe, yeah, we've summarized and stuff. It's done. What do you guys think about the next steps? Because I was kind of thinking it's either the vector functions or there's these grouping helpers that it says they're mostly experimental, and I can't say I've really seen them, like group map and stuff, but the group walk can be, it's worth doing that after per. So we kind of either have vector functions, or we go on to per, or we look at vignettes as a recap and a refresh. What do you guys think?
Did we want to do data frames? I mean, some of it's maybe a little prosaic, but there might be a few new ones in there.
Data frames is in like not a range distinct.
I mean, kind of like the little segment here that's in the docs, like bind calls, bind rows, then the two table verbs, and then kind of the newer or experimental ones that are sort of pseudo ports from SQL.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, I completely overlooked these. We would definitely want to cover these, right? I think because there are quite a few changes in 1.1.0. There has been a couple of was the latest version is 1.1.1. I think it's at now, like they've addressed some of the issues people having with this double warning message for the joins. Oh, it's 1.1.2. We're at, so it might be worth upgrading to that version when we do the data frames. So which of the two would you guys prefer? To just kind of, I guess it's logical to just go down to data frames first and do the bind calls, the rows and the joins.
Yeah, seems good to me. What are you saying about the vector functions? We will come back to.
Yeah, that would, because they're further down in this dplyr reference. So you go like from data frames, you go into multiple columns, and then it goes into vector functions. And what it says in the headline, just the documentation, is unlike other dplyr functions, these functions work on individual vectors, not data frames. There's a couple of there's a couple of functions I personally just never ever use, which I think will be really nice to go through some of these. And then there's other stuff like consecutive ID, which, yeah, I used to do quite a lot of the problems in Arthur data science. There was one the other day actually where it's essentially just implementing this with CumSum and like changes in values by like using lead and lag. So the addition of consecutive ID will be pretty nice. Yeah, but I think we probably do data frames next week, and then vector functions, and then we look at whether we move on to pair the following week.
Yeah.
So Jack,
Great.
do you think that the data frames, I'm kind of wondering how much overlap there is between, I guess, the data frame documentation and the vignette on the two table verbs?
Yeah, I haven't read the two table verbs one. Would you think potentially doing the vignette instead of the docs? Because one of the reasons I kind of stayed away from the vignettes originally was I thought we'd do the vignettes and they'd cover nearly everything kind of high level, and then we'd dig into the reference and we'd find that everything or most things we're finding we've already covered in the vignettes. And I just kind of shot for the reference just to go lower level, but might be worth trying.
Yeah, I don't know that I have any strong opinions. I mean, I think, there's some vignettes that cover things that aren't really covered elsewhere. Like, for example, the row-wise, I think, was a useful vignette because though there's some documentation that the vignette went into a lot greater detail, the two table verbs, I've not read this one, so I'm not really sure if it would be useful to go over separately, or if for whoever presents could simply be a useful guide, right? Maybe this is a nice way to present or structure the presentation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I don't know who would present. Does anyone fancy it? Like, anyone want to tackle the two table verbs? You don't have to say now. But...
I might be, I mean, unless Shah has a burning desire to do so, I might be inclined to take it on. Just, I mean, at the very least, to kind of take it as an opportunity to explore some that I know far less well than others.
Mm-hmm.
And so, would this be for next week then?
Yeah, I think two table verbs, right, and then vectors the following week. That's provided we can get through everything in these data. Well, because there are the two table verbs, right, like bind rows, bind columns, just looking at joins and stuff. But isn't there the later bit? Is there something else? Or is it? Are all of the data frame verbs here, are they all two?
That's a good question.
With the, yeah, I can only see the bottom, which is like rows insert, rows append, rows update. I feel like,
yeah,
I don't want to even touch that. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure.
I actually would love to touch those, only because I feel like sometimes when I'm doing data cleaning, it's like easier to just create some new observation than to salvage another, and that's I don't know. I guess one could kind of do that in R, but I don't know. That'd be interesting to see what this does. Like, in the sense, like you create a replacement data frame and you kind of bind rows. It'd be interesting. I don't know SQL, so this will also be interesting for that reason. So yeah, okay. So well, because I was kind of thinking it meant like you were editing stuff, which I was like, well, it's kind of against the heart of like reproducible stuff. But if it has a use case like that, maybe, like you say, this is definitely an argument to at least look at it, because I clearly don't know anything about it. So yeah, if we set out two table verbs as a nice
as in someone's already done the thinking probably about how to present this, and that's the vignette they've come up with. And then whenever we need to, we dip into the reference for the data frames, if we even need to. That'd probably be a good way to tackle next week.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah, I guess.
so then next week we are going with author presentation,
And then so after next week, vectors. I think we should definitely do vectors, like all the case match stuff that's in there now, the coalesce, the consecutive ID and stuff. They're nice. Shai, if you want to like do vectors, you're more than welcome to take vectors. I'll put it in the.
it will be in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, the week after next.
Okay. Actually, I would have presented that today, but I didn't prepare the RMD file, so that's why. Okay, I will present that vector.
Cool. So I'll pop that. And if you've got some of the RMD stuff already done, that's pretty nice. Because then the week after that, I guess we either do a big recap or we just move on to Per, which will be pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know if there's too much more to say. Like, it might be a case of if anyone does play around with some of the stuff that you watch me struggle with, like some of the when to use pick exactly and across and stuff, we can chat about it in Slack and stuff, right? Or we can revisit.
Or we can invite someone to, like, we are struggling with it. Can you make a presentation when you use it? And
yeah, that's true. That's actually true. I think Arthur got to a good point about it. Like, I think you kind of unearthed the confusion, which is where you just pointed out the thing where it says like pick is kind of preferable over across, and across might be deprecated at some point. That makes it make quite a bit more sense.
Well, deprecated, I guess, in one sense, like when across without the functions argument.
Yeah. Not in will replace forever. Yeah.
That's where I got confused and worried.
Yeah, because then you start thinking, when am I going to be able to do the thing I actually do with across mostly? Cool. Well, should we leave it there for today then, and we'll come back next week on the data frame verbs.
yeah. Thank you.
So Jack, would you think that like the programming with dplyr is a bit out of scope? That's more our lang territory.
Yeah, that's one. I know Rebecca was quite keen for early on when we spoke about it. I think it'd be super useful. And I'd actually be quite well prepared on that. I do a lot of like function building with dplyr functions and dipping into rlang where necessary. So if you guys wanted to do that, I would do that. And I've actually got time from this week on to prepare properly for stuff. So like I could put together quite a good, not portfolio, but like old functions I've built using the stuff that it all talks about. So let me know if that's something that you want to dip into, or if you wanted to lead it yourself, because it's like such an important skill, then more than happy for someone else to lead it. I guess that would be after vectors. So that would be in 3 weeks' time, unless there's a consensus that we bring that forward. Yeah. Nice. Well, I think I'm going to drop off then. And I feel like we kind of got, at least at the end, it felt like we kind of got to the bottom of some of the confusion around the colwise stuff. So that's cool. But nice to see you guys. And see you next week for the data frames. And sorry, Priyanka, you joined right at the end.
Did you finish talking? I thought you all just responded to joining now. Was it an hour ago?
Yeah, 1 hour ago.
Okay. It's just, it's so difficult to keep track of all of these sessions. So I saw that, all of you were gonna join 30 minutes late, but it pops up in the channel, but it's not like, your email reminder, like your meeting is upcoming.
Yeah. And I said 5:30, and I guess on
Yeah.
GM,
No,
yeah,
see, I am in IST, so yeah,
Yeah.
I was looking at it from my time point of view, but it just, I don't know, I didn't stick with the time.
yeah,
So
my bad. If that
that's my bad instead.
well, I'll try to put like, because I just put 5:30. Could have been GMT, could have been BST, could have been, yeah, it wasn't. And I guess a lot of you guys are on like, well, Arthur and Rebecca and stuff are on the Eastern time zones or whatever. So yeah, I'll try to put more time zones in. Right. Yeah. See you guys next week.
All right.
See you then.
Bye, guys.